I never imagined a single day could change my life so completely. It started on a bright, warm afternoon, my daughter's wedding. I had spent months helping her plan every detail, the flowers, the seating, the tiny ribbons on the wedding favors. I was proud, excited, and a little nervous. Weddings always bring family together, I thought. Love, laughter, memories. That's what I expected. But then, just as I was smiling for the photographer, my youngest grandson, little Timmy, tugged at my arm. His tiny hand felt so fragile, yet there was urgency in his eyes. "Grandma," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Leave. Now." I laughed softly, thinking he was playing a game. "What? Why, sweetie? The wedding just started," I said, kneeling down to his level. He shook his head, his eyes wide. "Grandma, I'm serious. Please, just go." Something in his tone made my heart skip. Children often see things adults don't notice, but this felt different. I glanced around. The hall was full of smiling faces, music softly playing in the background, laughter floating in the air. Nothing seemed wrong, yet I couldn't shake the unease growing inside me. I tried to brush it off, forcing a smile. "All right, Timmy, I'll be careful," I whispered, hugging him. I stayed for a little while longer, thinking maybe he had just misunderstood something. The ceremony went on. My daughter looked radiant, her husband handsome and proud. Guests clapped, flowers were tossed, and everyone cheered. I clapped too, my heart full of love for my family. But that nagging feeling, it lingered. After the reception, as people started mingling and taking photos, Timmy came running back. "Grandma, please, now," he said again, tugging at my sleeve. This time there was fear in his eyes. Real fear. My stomach dropped. I looked at him, really looked, and I realized he wasn't joking. I hesitated. Leave? During my daughter's wedding? Everyone would think I was overreacting, but then instinct took over. I nodded to him quietly, whispered, "All right, we'll go," and gently took his hand. As I walked away, I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Something was wrong, something I couldn't yet understand, but in that instant, leaving felt like the only choice that made sense. And I had no idea that one decision, one small act of listening to my grandson, would save me from a heartbreak I could never have imagined. After leaving the wedding hall with Timmy, we walked slowly toward my car. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot, and for a moment, everything felt unreal. The music and laughter from inside the hall faded, replaced by quiet whispers of the wind. I held Timmy's small hand tightly. He didn't speak, but I could feel his heartbeat against mine, fast, anxious. I thought about my family as we drove home. My daughter, radiant and happy, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. My son-in-law, polite, smiling, oblivious to the tension. My other grandchildren, playing and laughing, full of innocence. And Timmy, my little boy, who seemed to carry the weight of a secret far too heavy for his age. I tried to calm myself. Maybe it was nothing. Children imagine things all the time. Maybe he had just had a bad dream or felt overwhelmed by all the people. That's what I told myself over and over, trying to ease the knot in my stomach. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. At home, I made us some tea. Timmy sat quietly at the kitchen table, staring out the window. I poured the warm liquid into our mugs and handed one to him. "You know you can tell me anything," I said softly. "Whatever it is, I'll listen." He looked at me with those big, trusting eyes. "Grandma, I don't want anyone to get hurt," he murmured, almost too quietly for me to hear. I felt a chill run down my spine. My mind raced. Hurt? Who? What? Questions swirled, but Timmy didn't say more. He just shook his head and hugged his mug as if trying to keep something trapped inside. I realized then that our family, is more fragile than we ever imagine. Relationships, love, trust, they can all feel solid one moment and shaky the next. My daughter's wedding, a day meant for joy, had somehow become the backdrop for a warning I couldn't ignore. And I knew I had to pay attention, no matter how difficult or confusing it felt. That night, I stayed awake long after Timmy had fallen asleep. I thought about everything, what my grandson had said, how he had looked at me, the way my heart kept whispering that something wasn't right. I didn't know what was coming, but I had a feeling my life and my family's life was about to change in ways I couldn't yet understand. As I finally closed my eyes, I promised myself one thing. I would trust Timmy. I would follow that small voice of warning, even if it went against every expectation of what should happen at a wedding, even if it made me look foolish to others. Sometimes the heart knows more than the eyes, and that decision, that small act of listening, would be the first step in uncovering truths I never imagined. If you're enjoying this story and want to follow the full journey, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more real-life emotional stories. Every story is told from the heart, and your support helps me bring them to life. The next morning, the house felt unusually quiet. My daughter had returned from the wedding, glowing and excited, still wrapped up in her new life. My son-in-law was busy unpacking gifts and greeting relatives, smiling politely at everyone who stopped by. And there I was, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling that had settled in my chest the night before. Timmy seemed tense. He barely touched his breakfast, pushing toast around on his plate as if he had far bigger things on his mind. I watched him quietly, my heart aching. "Timmy? Talk to me," I said softly. "What are you afraid of?" He hesitated, glancing toward the stairs, then back at me. "Grandma, I think someone is lying. About everything," he whispered. I felt my stomach twist. Lying? At a wedding? I tried to make sense of it. Who could be lying? What could have gone wrong? My mind raced through names, faces, conversations. Everything seemed normal. Everyone seemed happy. And yet, I could see the fear in my grandson's eyes. It was real. As the day went on, small moments began to add up. A whispered conversation my daughter and her new husband had in the corner of the room. A glance from someone at the table that seemed too calculated, too sharp. Little things, easily overlooked, but together they began to form a pattern I couldn't ignore. I tried to keep calm. I didn't want to alarm anyone. Not my daughter, not Timmy. I smiled, helped clear dishes, and asked polite questions about the wedding gifts. But inside, a storm was brewing. My mind couldn't stop turning over the pieces of the puzzle that my grandson had started to reveal. Later that afternoon, as I was putting Timmy down for a nap, he clung to me tightly. "Grandma, please, don't let them hurt anyone," he said, his small voice trembling. I held him close, my own tears threatening to spill. "Shh, I won't, I promise." That's when I realized something important. Sometimes the people we trust most can be the ones hiding secrets. Sometimes appearances are deceiving. And sometimes it takes the innocence of a child to see what adults overlook. As the evening approached, I noticed another strange thing. My daughter seemed distracted, distant. She laughed when she should have smiled, spoke when she should have listened. Something was off. I wanted to ask, to reach out, but I hesitated. There was a tension in the air I couldn't yet name. I kept glancing at Timmy, drawing strength from his small, perceptive presence. He had seen something. He had warned me for a reason, and I knew, deep down, that ignoring his instincts could be a mistake I would regret. That night, as the house settled into quiet, I sat alone in the living room, replaying the day in my mind. The wedding, the smiles, the hidden glances, the whispered warnings. Something was coming, and I had a feeling it would change everything. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I tried to keep my voice steady as I made breakfast, but my hands trembled slightly. Timmy sat at the table, quietly nibbling on his cereal, his eyes darting toward the staircase every few seconds. I felt his fear, and it made my heart ache. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Timmy, tell me everything," I said softly, leaning closer. "I need to understand, please." He hesitated, then whispered, "Grandma, I saw them, my uncle, hiding something in the study, something about money and about Mom." My chest tightened. Money? My daughter? My mind raced. I thought back to all the small things, the secretive whispers, the distracted glances, the tension that seemed to linger in the air like a heavy fog. Could it be true? Could my family really be hiding something from me? From all of us? I knew then I had to act, but I also knew that confronting anyone too soon could cause a rift. So I waited, watching carefully, listening to every word, every movement, every subtle hint. Later that day, while my daughter and son-in-law were out running errands, I went to the study. My heart pounded as I opened the door slowly. Papers were scattered across the desk. Folders were stacked haphazardly. And then I saw it. A letter, partially hidden beneath a pile of documents. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was addressed to me. My daughter's handwriting. My eyes scanned the words, and with each line, the room seemed to spin. She had been hiding a truth, a secret that affected not just her, but the entire family. I felt a wave of emotions crash over me. Shock, sadness, disbelief. How could she? Why hadn't she trusted me? And yet, as I read further, I could see the fear and the desperation in her words. Just then, I heard the door creak. Timmy had followed me. "Grandma, what does it say?" he asked softly, his voice small but steady. I looked at him, and in that moment, I realized something important. Protecting my family didn't always mean keeping secrets. Sometimes it meant facing painful truths, even when your heart breaks in the process. I knelt down and hugged him tightly. "It's okay, Timmy," I whispered. "We'll get through this together." I knew then that I had a choice to make. I could either stay silent, pretend I hadn't seen anything, or I could act carefully, wisely, and with love. My instincts, Timmy's warning, and my heart all pointed to the same thing. I needed to protect my family, no matter the cost. And that decision, that moment of clarity, marked the turning point. From here, everything would change. The wedding, the smiles, the celebrations, they would all fade into the background as the truth came into focus. And I understood that sometimes listening to a child's warning could save not just a day, but an entire family. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more real-life emotional stories. Your support helps me bring these heartfelt stories to life, one chapter at a time. After discovering the letter, the house felt different. It wasn't just the physical space that had changed. It was the air itself, heavy with truths that had been hidden for too long. I sat in the living room, Timmy curled up beside me, and I realized that sometimes the hardest part isn't discovering a secret, it's figuring out what to do with it. I knew I couldn't act impulsively. My daughter, the one I had raised with love and patience, needed understanding, not blame. My grandson, who had warned me in his innocent way, needed reassurance that everything would be okay. And I needed to find the strength to hold it all together without letting fear take control. That evening, when my daughter returned home, I called her into the kitchen. Her eyes were bright, still flushed from the wedding day excitement, and she smiled at me. unaware of the storm that had already passed through our home. I took a deep breath, and in a calm, steady voice, I began to speak. "Sweetheart, I need to know the truth," I said softly. "I found your letter, and I need to understand what's really going on." Her smile faltered, and I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. She took a deep breath and sat down across from me. "Mom, I didn't want to worry you," she whispered. "I thought I could handle it on my own, but it's complicated." We spent hours talking. Every word she spoke lifted a little of the weight from my heart, and yet some of it settled heavier. She shared the mistakes she had made, the people she had trusted too easily, and the consequences she had feared facing. I listened, quietly, letting her pour out everything she had been holding inside. Timmy stayed close, his small hand occasionally brushing mine. I could feel his relief, and mine followed. The fear that had gripped our family began to loosen slowly, like ice melting in the sun. I realized that sometimes truth is not about punishment. It's about understanding, healing, and learning to protect the ones you love. By the end of the night, I felt a strange calm. The betrayal, the secrets, the fear, they didn't disappear completely, but they had been acknowledged. And in that acknowledgement, we found a way forward. My daughter promised to be more honest, to let me in, to trust me as her mother. And I promised to be patient, to guide her with love rather than judgment. I hugged Timmy tightly before bedtime, whispering, "You were right to warn me, little one. Listening to you saved us." His small smile, tired but genuine, reminded me that sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths. In that quiet night, I understood something essential. Family is never perfect, but when we face the truth together with love and patience, we can survive even the hardest storms. And sometimes the courage to listen, to really listen, is what keeps a family safe. The following days felt lighter, even though the events of the wedding and the hidden truths still lingered in my mind. Our home was filled with a quiet understanding. My daughter, once burdened by fear and secrecy, began to open up more. Conversations flowed freely, and I could see her shoulders relax, her smiles becoming genuine again. And Timmy, my little protector, remained a gentle reminder of the importance of listening, of noticing the small signs that adults sometimes overlook. I spent a lot of time reflecting. Life is unpredictable. One day it's filled with laughter and celebration, and the next it can hold secrets that shake your heart. But through it all, family is the anchor. Even when misunderstandings, mistakes, or betrayals appear, love and honesty can guide you through. That's a lesson I carried in every quiet moment. One afternoon, I found myself sitting by the window, a cup of tea in hand, watching the sunlight fall softly across the garden. Timmy ran past, chasing a butterfly, his laughter echoing through the air. My daughter joined him, her hand brushing his hair gently, her face serene, and I realized something simple yet profound. Sometimes the hardest storms bring the clearest skies. I thought about the wedding again. How easily I could have dismissed Timmy's warning, laughed it off, and stayed in the hall. How devastating that choice could have been. I was grateful, endlessly grateful that I had trusted my instincts, and more importantly, the small voice of my grandson. That choice had saved us, not just from immediate danger, but from the deeper heartbreak that could have unfolded. Family is fragile, yes, but it is also resilient. It bends, it adapts, it grows stronger when we face truth together. And sometimes the greatest acts of love are quiet ones. A hand held, a warning heard, a heart trusted. That's what I learned that week. That's what I carry with me now. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gentle shades of pink and gold, I felt a sense of peace settle over the house. The laughter of my family, the warmth of our home, and the knowledge that we had faced the truth together, all of it reminded me that life is precious, delicate, and worth protecting. And so I hold this lesson close. Always listen. Pay attention to the small signs. Trust the voices of those who care for you, even the youngest ones. because sometimes listening can change everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more real-life emotional stories. Your support helps bring these heartfelt journeys to life, one story at a time. The days after everything had settled gave me a lot of time to think. I found myself sitting quietly in the evenings, sometimes with a cup of tea, sometimes just staring out the window as the sky turned from gold to deep blue. Life had a way of teaching lessons, often in moments we least expect. And I realized that the events surrounding the wedding had given me one of the most important lessons of my life. I thought about Timmy first. My little grandson had shown courage far beyond his years. His warning had been clear and urgent, yet gentle. He reminded me that age does not always measure wisdom, and that sometimes those with the smallest voices can see truths that adults overlook. His trust in me, and my choice to trust him in return, had changed everything. It made me reflect on how often we, as adults, dismiss the insides of those around us, especially children. Their honesty is pure, their instincts sharp. That realization humbled me. Then I thought about my daughter. I had felt hurt, even betrayed, by the secrecy and the choices she had made. But as I reflected, I understood her fear. She had acted out of love, thinking she was protecting us, or perhaps herself. Life is not simple, and the mistakes we make often come from good intentions. Her courage to finally be honest with me, to let me in despite her fear, showed me the power of trust, even when it is fragile. And myself. I thought about my own instincts, the quiet voice inside me that told me to listen to Timmy, to step away from the wedding hall, to pay attention to the subtle signs. I realized how easy it can be to ignore that inner voice, to doubt your own judgment. But that moment of clarity, trusting my intuition, had not only saved me, it had given our family a chance to face the truth and heal. I understood then that strength is not always loud or forceful. Sometimes strength is quiet, patient, and attentive. I also reflected on the nature of family. Families are messy, imperfect, and full of surprises. They can frustrate us, break our hearts, and challenge our patience. But they are also our greatest source of love, resilience, and connection. The challenges we face together, even the painful ones, strengthen the bonds that truly matter. In that quiet reflection, I felt gratitude. Gratitude for Timmy's courage, my daughter's honesty, and the chance to act with love instead of anger or fear. I realized that life is fragile, but it is also beautiful when we face its truths together. And I understood that every experience, even the painful or frightening ones, carries a lesson. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, feeling a calm settle in my heart. The storm had passed, but the lessons remained. And I promised myself to carry them always, listening carefully, trusting deeply, and loving fully. The days that followed felt peaceful, though I knew life would always have its surprises. The tension and fear that had shadowed the wedding were behind us, replaced by a quiet understanding. My daughter, Timmy, and I had grown closer. The bonds between us were strengthened not just by love, but by the trust and honesty that now flowed more freely than ever before. I often think back to that moment at the wedding when Timmy tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Grandma, leave now." At the time, it seemed almost unbelievable that such a small voice could carry so much weight, but now I understand. Life is full of moments like that. Tiny warnings, fleeting glances, whispers that guide us if we choose to listen, and when we do, it can make all the difference. Family, I've learned, is not about perfection. It's not about always having the right answers or never making mistakes. It's about being present, being honest, and supporting one another even when the truth is hard. It's about noticing the little things and valuing the voices that might otherwise go unheard. That wedding taught me this in the most profound way. Timmy has grown even more special to me in these weeks. I see his courage every day. Not just the courage to speak up, but the courage to care deeply, to notice when something is wrong, and to trust his heart. He reminded me that love often shows itself in the quietest ways. And my daughter, now more open and trusting, showed me that admitting mistakes is never a weakness. It is a path to healing. As for me, I feel a renewed sense of calm and purpose. I carry with me the lessons of listening, patience, and trusting my instincts. I understand that family is a journey, sometimes difficult, sometimes joyful, but always worth the effort. And I am grateful for every small moment of connection, every warning, every shared tear, and every hug that reminds me why love matters most. Looking back, I realized that day at the wedding was not just a moment of fear, it was a moment of clarity, a reminder that life is fragile, but love is stronger than fear. That even in the midst of uncertainty, when we listen carefully and act with compassion, we can protect the ones we love and find hope where it seems lost. So if there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this. Always pay attention to the small signs, listen to the quiet voices, and trust the heart of those you love. Life will always test us, but love, honesty, and courage can guide us through even the hardest storms. So if this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more heartfelt, real-life stories. Your support helps bring these emotional journeys to life, one story at a time.